All right, so I'm going to call the Neary Building Committee meeting to order. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024. It is 7:02 p.m. First order of business is approval of meeting minutes from last Monday, January 29th. Questions or comments on the meeting minutes? All right, then I'll move that we accept them as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Roger. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Chris? I saw your mouth move, but I didn't get it, Chris, what you said. No one can hear him, correct?
No, cannot hear him.
I'm going to go to Roger and I'll come back to you, Chris. Roger?
Aye.
And I am aye.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Yes.
Aye.
All right, so that is a 6-0 vote. Subcommittee reports. Finance subcommittee, anything to report?
Nothing exciting. We basically are just approving Skanska invoices right now. We did last meeting, we're meeting once a month, did start discussing the process of how the budgeting process looks, et cetera. Jim explained to us the form, I believe 3011, Jim, as far as how that works. We did briefly start talking about making sure that we get all the points that we're entitled to as far as the MSBA that gets added on for doing good things. But there's really nothing too exciting yet to report other than we're doing what we need to do, which is make sure Jim gets paid.
And I'm sure Arrow Street, who will join us in a second, is going to appreciate getting paid shortly thereafter once they're ready to start issuing invoices.
Yes.
All right, I'll do communication subcommittee very quick, then I'll have the team join us. Like I said last week, we had met about 10 days ago at this point. There is a draft communication that's ready to go out that will advertise the open forums that we're going to hear a little bit more about. Greg and I have agreed, based on last week's discussion, we'll get into a little bit more. We will run the communication by the campaign finance division just to get a flavor of whether they have any questions on it. I'll fill everyone in a little bit more on some of our next steps from last week, but we do expect to have a communication that goes out. How it goes out, I think, is the question. But that's already been approved by the communications subcommittee. Any questions? All right, then I'm going to bring the team in. Before I hand it over, who is going to need screen share privileges?
I have the materials up, so I will share my screen.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay, so we are going to officially move to the project update from Arrow Street and Skanska. I will turn it to the team and take us wherever you'd like, and we'll come back with questions at the end.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so we've had a busy month. The last month, we'll jump to what we've done over the last month. Obviously, got the designer contract executed. That's behind us. That's over to the MSBA per the requirements. We had our educational visioning kickoff meeting, and I'm going to have Arrow Street go into a little bit more detail on the visioning. We toured the Woodward and Neary School with folks from the district, as well as Arrow Street and Skanska. And then we also toured some sample schools last week, Harvard, Acton Boxborough, and Ashland. So I guess anything to add just on what we've done in the last month, Larry or Katie, as far as the visioning or tours?
Don't think so from our end. We're happy to go through it if people have questions or want to talk about it, but for the moment, I would say that covers it pretty well.
Okay. All right.
Jim, will you please send me a copy of the fully executed contract?
Yes. Yep. Definitely. Okay. So I think I'll do the budget and schedule update after the next piece. So looking at the next 30 days, we have the educational vision session, the session one, coming up next week, February 12th. And that's just an initial listening. And then we get into a bit more detail on February 14th in the programming workshop. Over February break, this is a big piece of this. The existing site survey of the school, as well as the facility, just getting into the building and really reviewing everything. And that's going to be Arrow Street and their sub-consultants. We're also trying to schedule our first working group meeting that we discussed last Monday. Basically a recap of the school tours, what folks thought of those, and then just going over a general process. We also have, and this is further down on the agenda, the community forum that we're tracking for the end of this month, beginning of March. So we can go into more detail on that. So as far as schedule goes, this is just where we are. We're in the first part of module 3, and eventually getting to our PDP submission in May for the to the MSBA for the PDP. So, and that's the preliminary design program where we lay out our options. So the two big pieces of that, like I spoke about, are the existing conditions of the site and the building, and then the educational visioning piece. So with that, Larry or Katie, do you want to go into any detail on your work plan as far as the visioning sessions that are coming up?
Well, I was going to say, I think you covered it pretty well. So a week from today, we will have what we're calling the initial visioning session, which is listening really to what's going on with the school and the school leadership. We then follow that up with work session number 1, 2 days later on the 14th. And then we have 2 follow-up sessions, March 1st and March 11th. And really all of this is intended to get a better understanding of how both the work is, or the school curriculum is happening today, and what improvements we might make. And as we mentioned, part of this is seeing what design models or ideas that we might start to implement. And it was kind of nice to go through. So the 3 schools we went to, the Mindus School down in Ashland, the Acton Boxborough Boardwalk campus, and the Hildreth Elementary School in Harvard, each had a sort of different way of approaching both classrooms, although I think it was a little bit of a nuanced difference there. But really these additional learning spaces, and each school has its own, or each district really has its own particular way of thinking about that. And so I think it was good for folks to see that.
Yeah, and just the big piece, so everybody understands the visioning really collects the information in order for us to draft the educational program. That's really the big milestone to get to through the visioning process. Once we have the educational program, then we start to work through building options that meet that educational program. So that's really that duration up until the end of March, and then that gives the district time to draft their educational program. And then we really get into the meat of the options and working through that. And also just because there was a couple of questions, because it's a pretty quick duration for the visioning process. It's about 6 weeks. There's input during that, obviously, but that's not the end of input for the district, for the community. throughout the schematic design process, as we go through options, we're going to continue to take feedback on options. And, it's not your last bite of the apple at the visioning. It really, the comments and, feedback continues all the way through to schematic design. Just want to make sure that that's clear.
Who put this together?
This is Arrow Streets.
Okay. Errol Street, can you change the SBC to NBC?
Of course, yes.
Sure.
I'm sitting here going, what on earth is SBC? Then I finally figured it out. So,
Okay. Yeah, different communities have different terminology. I will
School
change that
building
in all of
committee.
those. Yeah.
ours is Neary Building Committee.
Okay. Good to
Yeah.
know.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. And then milestone schedule, I pretty much touched on it with the graphic. So no big updates there. Obviously, just really tracking towards our MSBA submissions, because it all goes to an eventual board meeting in the fall, and their boards only meet every 2 months, so it's really all leading up to that. But we are on schedule for that as of today. All right, so I'll jump to the budget. So this is updated through this week. We input the Arrow Streets contract, and we input the website as well. So you see, so just so everybody, this is always broken down by MSBA propay codes. So this was the original feasibility study. This is any budget revisions, any moves. And then this is the revised budget. This is our committed to date. So this is Skanska's contract, Arrow Street's contract, and the website right now. And obviously, when we finalize this number, we'll get that together. So as of today, as far as a balance remaining for committed costs, we have $4,000 in AE feasibility, $100,000 in environmental and site. Larry and Katie and I met last week. We're finalizing that to try and get those pieces and parts to fit within this budget. And then the other category, we have just a little under $2,000. So all in, it's 105,880 remaining in the feasibility budget. We have our first MSBA reimbursement about to go in. I believe it's signed. We're just we're going to submit it. So that'll be the first reimbursement that will come back to the district. So that's it for the budget update. Any questions?
Oh,
And
just
you're submitting the MSBA completely from Skanska?
Yes.
And we should
And-
expect to get our percentage, whatever, 38% times that 33,360?
During feasibility, yes. Yep.
and not that it's a big number, but the website came in at 6,000. So that's the final number now, and contract was signed.
Good.
So don't take that to the bank, but you got $4,000 more.
Yeah. So we'll update with that. Make that update. Okay. All right. So that's all we had for the overall project update.
Greg, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think it'd be helpful just for the committee to hear from you or someone on your team of just how you're thinking through the parties in the room from the school side in some of those visioning sessions that were just outlined.
Sure. So the visioning working group is really made up of kind of core central office leaders. So it's a much smaller team. And then we also have our coordinators and district leaders as part of that team as well. So it's really kind of an internal team. And then the educational forum is really more broadened stakeholders. So teachers, parents, PTOs, town members, and they'll go through the educational forum session. And then also, I think we'll be adding some other listening sessions with each of the faculty and staff in the schools. And then I think, Jason, I'm sure you'll talk about kind of the community listening sessions scheduled for February 29th and March 11th.
So just for the sake of obvious and just making it clear, those are not open public meetings other than the open forums that we'll talk about later, right? So there's primarily employees of the district. Mark Purple and I did coordinate to get certain members of the town staff involved at certain points, including but not limited to police chief, fire chief, youth and family and recreation, that are also going to be part of that as community stakeholders from a town employee perspective.
And library.
That wasn't on the list, but we will add that in.
I'm sorry. I thought we had talked about that.
Okay, we can add
All
that
right,
in.
I'll stay on script, Jason.
I was just looking at the list, and that's what I was reading off of, but yeah.
Library should be involved.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why we have, that's exactly why I said it, because figured I'd tease out something. So are there any questions for the team on what they just walked through? Okay, going once.
Okay, I got one.
All right.
Timing. So if you go back to the slide that showed the whole calendar, I was surprised. It looked like it was going faster than I thought it was going to go. When is the date that we believe that we're going into the MSBA with the proposed project, the one that we believe is the right one to do? Or are we going to the MSBA with all of them and work with them together to come up with the right one? Are we going to them with our recommendation? Or are we going to them with all choices?
Jim, you're on mute.
Thank you. So the PDP, that's the preliminary design program, lays out all of the options. We submit that to MSBA. They review it. They come back with comments. We have, so then after we incorporate any comments that they have, respond to anything that they comment on, then here, let me pull up the schedule one more
Jim,
time.
is that May or is it August? I know P slump and P, or both of those. So is it May or August?
Yep. So PDP is May.
Okay.
Yep. And then the preferred schematic report is our preferred option. And that gets submitted, in
August.
Yeah, August. Thank you. August 29th. MSBA has a review period, so that's why we have to get it in August. And then we're going in for our preferred schematic approval at the board meeting at the end of October.
Okay, so we're going to be busy over the summer.
Yes. Yep. Definitely.
This one from 0 to 1,000,000 very quickly, as I think a lot of people can attest to. In terms of speed. Any other questions on the schedule before I have Jim take it down? All right. We ready to move on to campaign finance again? Okay. So like Jason from the state had promised, he did follow up on, I believe Denise, you had asked the question on the link. You know, if Greg was able to provide a link. The good news there is we are going to be able to provide a link. We just don't have a website yet, right? We got to get up and running, but the good news is we can provide a link. Greg is also speaking with school council just to see what they've seen, and Mark, Greg, and I are going to speak with town council just to see, kind of triangulate each of our options. Just again, I think everyone wants to do the right thing, but also I think we have an obligation to educate the community on what exactly we're looking to do, because you can't just expect people to come and rubber stamp a project of any size, no matter where we land on this. So we're still trying to get more answers, but I think we've taken a step forward. I wouldn't say a leap forward, but a step forward. And I think this will kind of be a standing item on our agenda until we understand exactly the do's and don'ts, especially in a town meeting form of government, before we even get to a ballot. Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Denise.
When you do speak with town council and you do speak with school department council, will it be appropriate, this is a question I have, is it appropriate to, for example, my Southborough will come to us for information? Can we provide information to them and that's okay? It doesn't violate any laws, that it's coming from us and an open meeting?
We will reconfirm that, but my understanding is yes. I mean, that happens. Coming from a building committee, I think that the thing that caught my eye, and Greg, I don't want to speak for you, but it was the use of school newsletters that really was the one that stood out as that form. We can issue updates, notifications at any point in time, right? Especially that whole public meeting slide, if I recall correctly. But we will again reconfirm just to make sure we don't football, because that's half the reason why we have a building committee, right? Otherwise, there'd be no kind of checks and balances on any of this stuff, right?
100%. Thanks.
Good question. Any other questions on campaign finance? All right. Greg, do you want to talk about your vision a little bit for open forums, in what you were thinking about there, and then we can solicit feedback from the rest of the group?
Sure. So just a couple additions to the, I think, Arrow Street's educational visioning process. One of the things we plan on doing in addition is meeting with each of the faculty and staff, spending a day in the building and kind of having open office hours and just letting people kind of schedule time to meet with a few central office leaders to hear their ideas around visioning and programming and what they hope to see in a building. This way, everyone has a voice in each of the three schools. So that's one area where we're adding. And then the second are two kind of open forums for the community. Again, one on February 29th and a second one on March 11th. And the thinking behind the open forums is invite the community. Anyone who's interested could attend. The Neary Building Committee will kind of present the work it's doing, and then engage those in attendance kind of in sharing their thoughts, ideas around what the next level of work in terms of education for our community could look like. Again, this is kind of outside of Arrow Street and the MLP's work, who's helping us lead educational visioning, but they will participate and they will be in attendance of those, so they can gather and glean some data as well.
So I think in short, there probably will be a request as we get closer to that date for committee. It will be we'll have a posted meeting, so we'll have a quorum just to cover ourselves. But the intent would be that we help facilitate certain stations where people could rotate around, depending upon, right? And we'll team, committee members with, school administration team members, just to, create and understand the vision in smaller groups, as opposed to having, we don't know how many people are going to show up to, right? It's going to be a big question. So there will likely be an ask. I think the intent, Greg, right, is each of those would be carbon copy sessions. So there'd be nothing that precludes someone to coming to both, but
Correct.
the intent would be that the outcome is the same, just maybe different ideas percolate at each session.
So will that be it as far as officially soliciting public input and questions, besides obviously then come to the meetings, our normal meetings, but as far as truly trying to listen and incorporate, is that it? No more?
I think we at least as of today, MSBA is going to require us to present up to 12 options. We'll look, I think, not to get into all the details on that, because I think there's some more questions and answers on how you get to 12 permutations of this. But no, there would be other forms, right, along the way, that as we feel like we need community input, right? So if, for example, we need to make a big decision about grade configuration, site, additional spaces in a building that, we're getting conflicting data on, I think we have every right to hold further sessions as we learn more, or as we as a committee need more public input to inform our votes and path forward, is at least how I envision it. Someone can certainly correct my vision for that as needed.
So I don't get 12 either, Jason. I don't see how you get more than 7, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Craig, did you have your hand went up and came
No,
down?
I was just this kind of the next 6 weeks really is focusing on educational programming. What types of goals are we trying to achieve in terms of, what we want students to know and be able to do, and then what spaces could be helpful to accomplish that. So it's really about the programming and visioning, not so much about the building. But I think from those conversations, that's where Harold Street will take it and start thinking about scenarios and designs.
I think, and I will just say on those dates, I think we got lucky. We're going to be between sports seasons. I know it's an awful time, Kathy, for those that are involved with town meeting, but I think from a public perspective, you're going to be between sports seasons for the most part, depending on what sports. So hopefully can get a good audience out to participate of all demographic. Any other questions or comments on that piece? Greg, do we have an official location for those yet, or to be determined?
No, we've confirmed Trotter Middle School, either auditorium and
Okay.
those will begin at 7.
So I will send placeholders for that for the committee and everyone else that's usually on that invite list. Kathy, Roger, you two should think about whether your respective boards, and Andrew will have to likely think about this too, will have quorums at this, and whether it actually constitute needing a public meeting. But again, something you can deal with in about 20 days or so. Okay. Is there any public comment?
Okay, so before we go, so we're not going to meet again before we have the first one.
Not officially scheduled, depending upon how Greg and the team want to conduct those sessions. We may need to get together quickly to have a quick coordination meeting. That may be half an hour before, or it may be a separate, Zoom meeting. Obviously, the session will not be recorded on that night. So I think the framework needs to be developed first before we can talk about the substance. But I do not anticipate meeting before February vacation, the school vacation, unless something unexpected comes up. Go ahead, Roger.
So just to follow up on your comment, Jason, about determining whether or not either the school committee or select board, if they had a quorum there, would need to actually have a posted meeting. This potentially is one of these situations where members would be attending, but not there to do business. Is that true? Am I thinking correctly there? I'm not trying to get to the conclusion yet, but
Yeah, I think it's a question. I always err on the side of caution because then no one can question you later. But I think it's just something we should discuss. At least, Kathy, you clearly this committee needs to have a posted meeting for that night. Because clearly there will be substance that we'll then take back. The question is, are you going to take some of that discussion back? My reading of the tea leaves is there's going to be discussion about grade consolidation, right? That's going to be an action that the school committee may have to act on at some point in the future.
I agree with that.
All
Right,
right.
thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. I don't have an easy answer. Obviously, our town clerk is a tremendous resource on that topic too, that we can consult with. Okay, I saw no public comment. Meeting schedule, Kathy kind of already covered it, but our next official posted meeting as of now will be the 29th, right, for that open forum. And then we will have our regular meeting on March 4th, where we'll probably debrief on the first forum to inform probably the second forum that will follow right after. There is a question right now of whether we can start right at 7 p.m. because one of the visioning sessions is actually from 4 to 7 p.m. that day that a lot of our school administration team members are. So we may need to start at 7:15, 7:30, depending upon that night. But we're going to keep that night as of now. So that's our meeting schedule for now. Obviously, subcommittees may choose to meet between now and then based on their business. Questions on that? Is there any other business anyone wants to conduct tonight? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
And I as well. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Aye.